According to the International Legal Forum, these are the top 7 lies about Israel and IDF operations in Gaza. Publication with this name is authored by 2 men. One of them is Aaron Ostrovsky, CEO of the International Legal Forum, who is also a human rights attorney. The other author is John Spencer. Spencer is a professor at West Point Academy, where he serves as the chair of its Urban Warfare Studies. In their publication, these are the top 7 lies about Israel and its IDF operations in Gaza. Lie 1. Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Lie 2. Israel intentionally targets civilians in Gaza. Lie 3. The civilian to combatant ratio in Gaza proves Israel is committing war crimes. Lie 4. Israel is starving Gaza's population. Lie 5. Israel indiscriminately attacks hospitals and schools. Lie 6. Israel is illegally occupying Gaza. Lie 7. Israel violates Hamas prisoners' rights under the Geneva Conventions. Today's report is an abbreviated summary of Ostrovsky and Spencer's response to these lies. It is necessarily brief, but there is a wealth of information that exposes and disproves each of these libels. Because the flood of anti-Israel narratives and the top priority they generate in any web search service, the challenge is finding this cache of information. For this reason, I have compiled a list of sources you can read and study for yourself. That list is in a Google Docs file you are welcome to access at the link provided in the description to this report. By all means, dig deep. And if you're so inclined, use the information to create easy-to-understand graphs and memes. When you do, share them. For now, we can touch on answers to each of these lies, knowing there is a massive amount of documentation that supports these answers. Documentation that I hope and pray you will examine for yourself. Let's begin by hearing from John Spencer, one of the authors of the 7 Lies article. He was recently interviewed on a popular podcast called Trigonometry, hosted by Konstantin Kisin and Francis Foster. A few weeks ago, they sat down with John. The following clip is from that podcast, as are a few throughout this report, as we consider the 7 lies about Israel and Gaza. Before we address those lies, John reminds us of several important facts about Israel's war with Hamas.
Every aspect of the war against Hamas in Gaza is unique, and there is no parallel. The other aspect is that there's never been a war, and you've challenged people on this, where the civilian population is forced to stay inside of the main combat areas. The fact that Egypt, on October 8th, said not one person comes out of Gaza towards the Sinai Desert. Just from a military analysis, let alone a political analysis, I can't find that ever happening, right? In Ukraine, which I've been there, 3 to 5 million people left areas, massive civilian displacement in areas that Russia invaded, even still today. Syria, every war, the civilians get out of harm's way so that the militaries can have their fight and there be safeguarded or even move to humanitarian areas. I can't find any other situation, again, because I've studied urban warfare for over a decade and I have a little military service myself, where the enemy defender has prepared the ground for 20 years for that battle. Most urban battles, from Stalingrad to Aachen to Hue, all of these things are meeting engagements where the enemy gets inside the urban area or is there and then for a short amount of time prepares it for a battle. And we can talk about some of the numbers of previous battles, but the fact that Hamas spent billions of dollars and prepared every bit of Gaza for war is unique. And that means if you're an attacker, and again, if you just take the word Israel out of this and give the context of the war, there is no parallel. There is no parallel to the 300 to 400 miles of tunnels underneath every urban area in Gaza and connecting them all. There are tunnels around the world, and I've studied the Vietnam War from the tunnels of Cu Chi to the tunnels currently in North Korea and China. Nobody's ever built 300 miles of tunnels underneath their civilians for the sole purpose of using their civilians as a shield and as a sacrifice. That's their strategy. And I know other people have talked to you about that, is that Hamas wants its population to be killed. That's also unique. The Nazis didn't do that. The Japanese didn't do that. Even ISIS didn't say, look, my strategy is to get my people killed and then hope that the international world community stops Israel short of victory. But just the size of the enemy in Gaza in a 20-year prepared defense is what it is very unique and was going to make the IDF challenge astronomically hard to even get to the enemy.
So, with these foundational realities in mind, we begin our examination of the top 7 lies about Israel and Gaza. The first lie is that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The short reply is that Israel's conduct in Gaza is the very opposite of genocide. It is a defensive war, not an offensive one. And it is being waged under the binding requirements of international law. According to the official definition of genocide adopted by the UN in 1948, genocide means, quote, an intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, end quote. Take note. Genocide requires specific intent, not simply that civilian deaths occur during war, but that they are intended as part of a broader plan to exterminate a people. This specific intent sets a uniquely high bar that distinguishes genocide from even the most destructive military campaigns. None of Israel's actions meet this threshold. Israel targets Hamas, an armed terrorist entity that initiated war with mass atrocities on 7 October 2023. The IDF issues evacuation warnings, facilitates humanitarian aid, and restricts military operations to lawful targets. There is no Israeli policy, order, or pattern of action that even suggests an attempt to destroy the Palestinian people. The second lie is that Israel intentionally targets civilians in Gaza. What is the truth? The short answer is that Israel's armed forces, the IDF, is one of the only military forces in history to systematically exceed the legal obligation to protect citizens, even though it ruins the element of surprise. Before Israel executes an attack against enemy forces, it systematically warns the civilian population with pamphlets, texts, phone calls, maps showing evacuation corridors, and quote-unquote roof knocking before real missiles fall. Facial recognition is also used to confirm the identities of Hamas operatives. At all times, the battlefield is under constant aerial surveillance. If civilians are detected near enemy targets, missions are called off. The execution of all attacks are subject to remote command, where legal experts have the authority to cancel any mission that might violate international humanitarian law. In fact,
I have boldly said, and I challenge anybody, prove me wrong, that Israel has done more to protect civilians, as in the measures that any military has ever created in history. And because people don't know these, they haven't studied these, they're called civilian harm mitigation measures. Israel has done more than any nation in history, to include any Western nation. What they have done to protect civilians, we would have done some of those, but we would have immediately responded with overwhelming That's the goal in war, is to use overwhelming military force to convince your enemy to do your will, as in to either give back the hostages, surrender, or you take what it values most, which is its population centers and its land. That's war. That's why the framework of this is all wrong.
The third lie goes like this. If you're not yet a subscriber to endtimes.com and would like to see the rest of this very important report and others like it, I urge you to subscribe right now at the website endtimes.com. For only $7 a month, you will receive a wealth of information and insight from Jimmy Evans, Mark Hitchcock, and experts from around the world, including Israelis living right here in the Jewish state. Do yourself a favor. Sign up today.